Prototype fans have been asking for Prototype 3 for years, and I get it because I'm right there with them. If Alex Mercer showed up in a trailer tomorrow, standing over a burning city like the Outbreak got a marketing budget, I would lose my mind. I would watch that trailer 15 times, pause on the silhouette, pretend I'm above nostalgia, and then immediately prove I'm not. With a simple credit card swipe, of course. But that is also the problem, because the easy version of Prototype 3 is just bringing Alex back and hoping the claws do the marketing. And listen, the claws are cool. I will never disrespect the meat weapons. But when I think about why Prototype actually stuck with me, it was not just because I could run up buildings, throw cars, and make the military regret showing up to work. It was because the more powerful I got, the uglier the world became. At first, Prototype feels like chaos. You're sprinting across rooftops, fighting tanks, eating people for memories, and turning Manhattan into your own personal disaster zone. But then the game starts pulling you underneath all of that. Blackwatch stops feeling like a normal military response. Gentek stops feeling like a regular science company. The web of intrigue starts feeding you pieces of a conspiracy that makes the city feel less like a playground and more like something rotten with streetlights. That is where Prototype hooked me. Not just with power, but with the feeling that every answer was making the world worse. And that is why Prototype 3 cannot just be nostalgia with claws. It has to answer one thing this franchise left sitting in the dark: Pariah. The funny thing about Prototype is that it is extremely easy to explain in the dumbest way possible. You're a guy with superpowers. You run up buildings, you turn your arms into weapons, you fight the military, you throw cars at helicopters, you consume people for health like the world's worst protein plant. And technically, none of that is wrong. That is the game. But that is not why people still talk about it. Because if Prototype was only rebellious science man turned walking parkour infection commits war crimes, then it probably would have faded away like every other open world game from that era people say they miss, reinstall for one afternoon, then quietly uninstall when the nostalgia runs out. Prototype stuck because there was something nasty under the fun. The game made being powerful feel good, obviously. Nobody is going to sit here and pretend elbow dropping a tank from a skyscraper is not therapeutic. Sometimes life is hard and a tank needs to be taught humility. But Prototype also made that power feel uncomfortable. Every ability came from something wrong. The weapons were not weapons. They were your body. Your healing was not a potion, it was consumption of another human being. Your disguise was not stealth tech. It was wearing someone else's identity like the most illegal fit ever made. And the more the game gave you, the less human it felt. That is what made Prototype different. It was not just asking, how strong can you become? It was asking, what are you becoming? And that is why the world mattered so much. Manhattan was not just a map. It felt infected on every level. The streets were falling apart, the military was lying, Gentek was hiding behind science, and Blackwatch had the energy of an organization that would burn down a hospital and call it a containment strategy. Then the web of intrigue tied all of it together. That system is still one of the best ideas Prototype had because it made the story feel like something you were ripping out of the world. You did not just listen to exposition. You hunted people down, consumed them, and stole the truth straight out of their heads. Which is insane, by the way, because most games give you the lore through books, audio logs, or some guy named Captain Exposition standing by a door. Prototype said no, eat him, and somehow it worked, because every memory made the city feel more guilty. Every target had another piece of the cover-up. Every answer made Blackwatch, Gentek, and the Outbreak feel bigger than Alex alone. That is the version of Prototype I want back. Not just the chaos, the ugly truth underneath it. And this is where Prototype 3 conversations always get trapped. Because the second you bring up a third game, everyone immediately starts arguing about Alex and Heller. And I get why. Alex Mercer is the face of Prototype. He is the reason most people remember the franchise in the first place. The powers, the mystery, the whole I may or may not be a person anymore situation. It worked. Alex was interesting because the game did not just ask who he was. It slowly made you question what he was. First, you think you're solving his past, then the game starts shifting under you. The more Alex learns, the less human the answers get. You're not just uncovering memories, realizing the thing wearing Alex Mercer's face might not be Alex Mercer at all. That is good. That is messy in the right way. Then Prototype 2 comes in with Heller. And look, I've already made my stance clear. I am not a fan. Not because the idea could never work, a grieving soldier infected by the same nightmare that destroyed his life, that's not a bad pitch. The problem is that Prototype 2 feels like it narrows the story, well, really eradicates the story the first game set up. Heller is angry, Mercer is the target. The game keeps pushing you toward revenge. And revenge can work, but after the first game made the city feel like it had 1,000 secrets buried under the concrete, Prototype 2 felt like it kept pointing at one man and saying, there, be mad at him. And yeah, I was mad, just maybe not the way the game wanted. Because Prototype was at its best when the world felt bigger than the person you were playing. Alex worked because he was tied to mystery. Heller struggled, at least for me, because the story got too direct, too one-sided. That does not mean Prototype 3 needs to erase Heller or worship Alex like nostalgia pays rent. It means the third game needs a stronger reason to exist than either of them alone. And that is where Pariah comes in. Pariah is one of the weirdest parts of Prototype because he barely exists on screen. And yet the second you remember him, the whole series feels unfinished. He's not some big villain monologuing from a rooftop. He is not out there throwing tanks or yelling about evolution like he's just graduated from evil LinkedIn. He is mostly a name, a loose thread, a locked door. But that is what makes him interesting. Because Pariah is tied to the stuff that made Prototype feel bigger than a power fantasy. Elizabeth Greene, Hope Idaho, Red Light, Black Light, Blackwatch, Gen Tech. All of the rotten history sitting underneath the first game. And the key difference is simple. Alex was infected and became something else. Heller was infected and survived it. Greene carried the older nightmare before either of them, and Pariah was born from it. That changes the conversation. Because now we're not just talking about what happens when a virus infects someone. We're talking about what happens when the virus creates something of its own. That is the part that makes Pariah scary. Not because he might beat Alex in a fight. That is a boring conversation. That is where everybody starts power scaling like they are presenting evidence to a judge who already lost the will to live. Pariah is scary because he might not be an accident. He might be the one thing all of this was moving toward. And once you start looking at him like that, Prototype 3 stops feeling like a nostalgia wish and starts feeling like unfinished business. Because what was Blacklight always trying to become? Was it just a weapon? Was it a mistake? Was it evolution? Or were Alex, Greene, Heller, Blackwatch, Gentech, and the whole infected mess just the ugly first draft of something worse? That is a reason for Prototype 3. Not, oh yeah, let's just throw something out and slap Prototype's name on. But more like, we never finished answering this, and now it's time to. And this is why I think Prototype 3 could work now. Maybe even better than it could have years ago. Because modern gaming is already filled with pieces Prototype had from the beginning. Fast movement, open world traversal, horror elements, morally ugly characters, infected cities, government lies, factions pretending they have control while everything is clearly going to hell in a lab coat. Prototype had that DNA already. A modern Prototype 3 could finally make the city feel alive or infected, which is basically the same thing with worse property values. Imagine the infection actually changing districts over time. Not just red zone means more enemies spawn here. I mean streets getting locked down, civilians disappearing from areas that used to feel safe, Blackwatch moving heavier units into infected neighborhoods, Gentech quietly transporting equipment at night like nothing suspicious has ever happened near a white van. Bring back the web of intrigue, make it matter even more. Every person you consume should pull you deeper in the conspiracy. Names, facilities, experiments, deleted files, contradictions, memories that don't line up. At first, it is just another Blackwatch cover-up. Then a censored name shows up, and a scientist refuses to say what they saw. Then soldiers start panicking over a person the player has not even met yet. And slowly, piece by piece, it all points toward Pariah. That is how you use him. Don't just throw him into the game like, here's your final boss, please enjoy the health bar. No, make him feel like something the world is afraid to remember. You should hear about Pariah before you see him. The city should start changing before he enters the frame. Blackwatch should not sound confident anymore. Gentech should stop sounding clinical and start sounding desperate. By the time Pariah actually appears, the player should not be thinking, can I beat him? They should be thinking, was everything before this just the warm-up? That is the Prototype 3 I want. Not just bigger, stranger, deeper. But that is also why Prototype 3 could fail horribly. Because the easiest version of this game is the worst version. Bring Alex back, put the face of Prototype on the cover, make the city bigger, give Blackwatch slightly cooler helmets, mention Pariah in one audio log, and with sequel bait. That would get attention for about 12 seconds. Then everyone would realize Prototype came back without a soul, and probably refilm. Because Prototype does not survive on nostalgia alone. Said this, it cannot just be an Alex Mercer game again. Yes, we remember Alex, sure. Some of us never stopped talking about him. And frankly, we may need supervision. But remembering Alex is not the same as understanding Prototype. Prototype worked because everything felt contaminated. The body, the city, the government, the science, the memories, the truth. Everything was infected. If Prototype 3 comes back as a safe, clean, market-tested open-world action game, it dies. And if Pariah becomes nothing more than a boss fight or a teaser for another sequel we might never get, then what are we even doing? Prototype should make you feel powerful and uncomfortable, like you're winning fights, but losing the argument for why you should exist. That is the balance. That is what a third game has to protect. So why Prototype 3? Because Prototype does not feel like a franchise that ran out of ideas. It feels like a franchise that walked away from the one idea that it could have evolved it for a quick cash grab. Alex gave the series its identity. Heller gave it conflict, even if I think the conflict was handled like someone dropped the script down an elevator shaft and called the impact a second draft. But Pariah gives Prototype 3 a reason. He is the part of the series that makes everything unfinished. The part that says Blackwatch was not just cleaning up a mistake. Gentek was not just studying a virus. Alex was not the end of the story. Heller was not the final word. All of them were circling the same ugly question. What happens when the infection stops copying people and starts creating something of its own? That is why I want Prototype 3. Not just because I miss the claws, even though, yes, I miss the claws. I want Prototype 3 because there is still something in this franchise worth answering. Somewhere behind all the bodies, memories, cover-ups, experiments, and infected streets, Prototype left a door closed. And if this series ever gets one more chance, I wanted to open that door. Because if Pariah is still out there, then Prototype was never dead. It was waiting for someone to let the wrong thing out. So I ask you this. If Prototype 3 actually happened, what would you want it to be? Pariah finally getting used? Alex coming back into the story? Heller getting another shot? Or something completely different? Because honestly, if it remembers what made Prototype feel dangerous in the first place, I'm listening.